Welcome everyone to this new episode of StoryAlways, in which we have the great pleasure of having with us Cheyenne and Stentor Danielson to talk about their game Laser Kittens and the expansion that is being now kickstarted, More Kittens. So thanks a lot to both of you for being here today with me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Before I continue, I want to remind the spectators that if you want to support if you want to support the channel, you can subscribe on Twitch, either normally or with your Prime account. And also now we have like one of those coffee things where you can give us like a couple of bucks for once, and you don't have to subscribe or anything like that. And if you just want to help us, so I would really appreciate it. That being said, with the topic of today, Laser Kittens, could you please explain what Laser Kittens is about while I send the links around also?
Yeah, you want to take this one?
Sure, why not? So Laser Kittens is the first game that we funded through Kickstarter 3 years ago. And it is a nice, fairly simple system in which you are foster kittens who are at Knoll Street for Wayward Kittens, where you have humans, cat professors, and other animal professors that help learn how and also how to control your lasers. Everyone has lasers. There are pictures of laser eyes, and so this is a game about that, where every cat has a specific laser and you have to learn how to use it to actually do things. So it's a really cute, fun little game with a pretty simple mechanic where we stand playing card deck. Easy enough to teach children how to play, and still fun enough.
And sorry, Cheyenne, could you check if you could like speak louder by any chance? I think we.
I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
realized exactly what just happened. Where did I get cut off?
I think we got most of it. Just try to speak a little bit louder in the future. But yeah, I think the idea, like Laser Kittens living in a foster home, waiting for them for their forever house, I think it's called, or forever home.
Yep.
And like learning and developing their laser powers, which is a thing kittens have. If you don't know, that's a cool fact for you. So where did the idea for Laser Kittens came from?
So we got the idea because we've been fostering kittens for our local animal shelter for quite a few years, and it's a really cool experience. You get these kittens that come to you, they're so tiny, and they're brand new to the world, so they don't know anything about anything. They're just learning how to be cats. And we've watched a lot of litters of kittens grow up. We've seen them learn how to walk, how to climb, how to meow, and then they finally get big enough that they can go find their forever home. And when you have all these kittens around, you get a sort of a different perspective on what adventure means as well. Because for one of these tiny little kittens, like going down the stairs for the first time is like a huge adventure. Who knows what could be down there when they finally get down into the living room. And so part of what we're doing with the game is trying to get you into seeing the world from a kitten's point of view, where all the things that we as humans just take for granted that we know about the world, as a tiny kitten, you don't know that the world could be anything out there. And Laser Kittens is kind of designed to allow all that to happen. So, we've had games where it turns out that the cupboard in the kitchen is a portal to another dimension. We've had games where there's like ghosts of former cats that come back on a certain night of the year. We've had all kinds of things happen because, as far as a kitten's concerned, that's all totally possible in our world.
How does your experience taking care of cats has informed the way the development of the game, the approach you've chosen to take with the game, with the structure of the game, the kind of system you wanted to use?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. It's kittens. I like the idea that the mechanics are fairly simple because kittens are fairly simple. I mean, they really just exist to eat and play and sleep and eat and play and sleep and eat and play and sleep. And so, this being a heavy rolling 3 different types of dice sort of game just doesn't seem like that would really, jive very well with, what we're going with. If Stentor has any other.
Yeah, so one of the kind of distinctive mechanics that the game has is the mechanic for your laser. So, like Cheyenne said, every kitten has a unique laser that does something different. And part of what we wanted to capture with that is the idea that as a tiny kitten, you're not fully in control of what your laser is doing. So, in the game, an adult cat can just use their laser and do whatever they want with it. That's how cats get away with some of the things that they get away with, is because they have this kind of secret power. But you're a little kitten, and you've got kind of this energy welling up inside you that you need to let out, but you don't totally have control over what it's going to do. Just like when a kitten runs around, they don't always, aren't always fully in control, and they bump into things, or they climb up something and they can't get down because they can't figure out how to retract their claws yet. So we wanted to kind of capture that in the laser mechanic. So with the laser, you've got several cards face down that represent what your laser is going to do, and you can, through the game, you can add better cards to your laser if you are showing that you're growing up, you're learning how to be a cat. You can get stuck with worse cards in there if you're being immature and not learning your lessons. But then when you finally go to use your laser, you still don't know everything, all the cards that you've got. And so when you add it all up, if you get a positive result, then you get to tell us what your laser does. So you're able to accomplish something good with the laser. But if you get a negative result with the cards, then your laser is, it's going to go off. You're going to do something with their laser, but it's going to be something that complicates your life or backfires on you. So the example I like to give is in an early game. So the other thing to mention is that all the lasers have names, and they all rhyme with pew, pew, pew. So one of the lasers is called 222, and it doubles things. And so the kittens were being chased by some rats that wanted to attack them. And so one of the players had this 222 laser, and they're like, all right, I'm going to use my laser. And their idea was that they were going to double the distance between them and the rats so they could get away. But they got a bad result on the laser. And so what we decided actually happened was they doubled the number of rats chasing them. So it did something thematically appropriate, but totally backfired, because as a tiny kitten, you don't exactly know what's going to happen when you try to use your powers.
And the other kind of important aspect of the game, is that there's no a specific single GM. It is a sort of like a rotative GM, changes scene by scene. What do you decided to take that approach with the design?
Personally, we just kind of like GM-less games. That's one of the things that kind of makes our company work is the fact that both Stentor and I like the same kind of game.
Mhm.
So that was definitely something. It wasn't like, oh, let's set out to make one. It
Mm.
just, as this game evolved, it was like, oh, hey, we can make this GM list. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I find whenever I start to design a game, it tends to turn into a GM-less game, even if I didn't intend it that way. So I've written a number of games that are at different levels of completion, and I think I have one that's still a game with a designated GM, but that's one of the ones that's sort of earliest in development. So we'll see where it goes. I think for me, I just like the kind of balance that you get at the table, where everybody is in a kind of similar role in their contributions to the story. When you have a GM list or with Laser Kittens, like you said, it's rotating GM is probably a little closer to exact. So at the beginning of each scene, you determine the class captain, who kind of takes on a GM type role for that scene, and then the next scene you get a different class captain.
And yeah, I think that totally makes sense. Like, having a GM is kind of like the default in the hobby, but it doesn't really need to be at all. It's just how things have turned out, but it's just another design decision. And yeah, another. So you've talked before about how being a kitty, for a kitty, like the smallest things in the world are like a whole adventure. How do you make the players feel that challenge of, yeah, like jumping from to the sofa is like a life-threatening situation? Maybe not life-threatening, but like something really challenging. How do you make them feel that kind of thing?
So some of it is just in the way that we present the game. So if I'm teaching it to a new group of people and I'm like explaining the mechanics for how you resolve conflicts and stuff, I'll use examples like, okay, you need to jump up on the table, and who knows what's going to happen when you jump up on the table. And so this is how we resolve that. And the other part of it is that in the setup materials. So in the base game, we have some materials to help you set up your particular adventure, and then in the expansion that we're kickstarting right now, we have a lot of people writing sort of pre-gen scenarios that have all this kind of worked out for you. But in those materials, there's things like you get a map of the house that you're in. So that kind of encourages you to think on the scale of, all right, these kittens are in this house. They can run around to the different rooms of the house. And that's like, a big thing to go from the bedroom to the bathroom or whatever it is. So it kind of gives you a sense of the scale you're working on. And there's also a set of situations that you pick from, which are kind of like plot hooks, things that you can build your story around. And the scale of those plot hooks helps to encourage kind of thinking in this way. So there are things like, oh no, we're all out of wet food, or it's kitty bath time. So having those kind of prompts, I think, helps people get in the right mindset of what kind of things would be a giant adventure or a giant challenge for a kitten, is like, trying to avoid bath time or something like that.
Being an improvisational game, how do you help the players to come up? I imagine those kind of prompts are part of it. How do you help the players to come up with new situations, with like new elements of game, to kind of make sure they don't get stuck on anything, all those kind of things? How does the game support them?
I think maybe some of the help with that would be the NPCs that get added in. That definitely can help frame things. We do NPCs, a list of NPCs.
Sorry, the sound is cutting again.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
Stentor, go ahead and
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, so we have things. There's additional things that you kind of add into the game at the beginning. So there's like lists of NPCs, and you have to start with at least one human NPC and at least one cat NPC. That's one of your professors, the adult cats, and they have little personality descriptions and stuff. So that gives you some ideas. In the book, there's just a kind of a list of scene ideas, sort of generic scene ideas that you can take a look at, and they're all linked to different cards. So you can be like, all right, I've got these cards in my hand, and so that suggests these different scenes. And then also the mechanism for choosing the class captain. So it doesn't just rotate the way some GM-less games do. Instead, there's a bidding system. So at the beginning of each scene, you go around and each person gets a chance to put up an idea for what the scene would be and put in a bid for being class captain, and whoever has the highest bid then gets to run the scene that they proposed. So you don't have to make a bid, but often you get several different bids at the beginning of each scene, and so that is essentially putting more ideas into the mix. So you might hear some things that one person said, oh, well, in this next scene we should do this. And they might not have won the bid to do that scene, but that idea might kind of stick in your mind, and you might try to bring up something related to that later on in the game. So, having that bidding phase helps to kind of brainstorm additional ideas for what might happen in your scenes and where the game might go.
Cool. Talking about that, why did you decide to use this kind of card-based bidding system to be the core resolution mechanic of the game?
So that actually grew out of the laser mechanic that I mentioned earlier. So when I was first conceptualizing this game, I actually was thinking of it as a dice-based game, because most RPGs use dice. And I was trying to figure out how to emulate that idea of like the kitten just gets so filled up with energy and they just can't take it anymore, and they have their laser go, but they like can learn as they go and get more control over it. And I was trying out different ways to do that with like dice pools and stuff, and it didn't work until oh, looks like Cheyenne.
Yeah, I think we lost them.
Drop from the call. All right. Well, I'll continue and give Cheyenne a chance to get back on. They probably had to restart their app or something. But yeah, so the laser mechanic seemed to work much better with cards, and so then it was like, well, we should keep it all linked together, keep it all consistent. We'll make the rest of the mechanics work with cards. And then the other thing the cards allowed us to do was that for our first Kickstarter, we had an artist do a special deck of kitten cards where we had a unique, adorable kitten illustration on every card. And I sometimes will just, like, if I'm facilitating the game and I'm not actually playing, because at a lot of cons, I have so many people wanting to play that I just end up just facilitating. And I'll just sit and look at the cards because they're so awesome. So that was a nice bonus. And that's kind of leads into talking about the Kickstarter that we're doing right now, because one of the pieces to this Kickstarter is a all new deck of kitten cards, because we sold out our stock. We did a big printing of the original kitten cards when we did our other Kickstarter. And so we sold through that stock. And we were talking about what to do because people like these cards. And it's like, well, we could just go like relicense the art from the artist and get another printing done. But we said this is a good opportunity to find a new artist to do a new set of cards, and spent a lot of time looking at different artists, scouring, hashtags on Twitter for artists and other websites where artists post their stuff. And eventually we found a woman named Dominique Ramsey, who has a really great style that really fits the game. Is also really different from the style from Rory, who did the first set of cards. So I think that it's a nice thing for people that already have the original set of cards. They can, back the Kickstarter to get a set of the new cards, and it's not repetitive because the new cards have very different but just as adorable art on them.
And since we're talking about the new Kickstarter, More Kittens, what other things are part of this Kickstarter?
So the other element to it, in addition to the new cards, is an expansion or companion book for Laser Kittens. So the More Kittens book is including a bunch of different things to enhance your Laser Kittens experience. So there's information in there about tips for playing online, because online role-playing is becoming a lot bigger of a thing than it was even a few years ago when we launched Laser Kittens, and ideas about playing it as a 2-player game or as a game for a much larger group, which we actually had someone come up to us and say, hey, I've been playing Laser Kittens with big groups at some conventions, and I did this and that to modify the game to work for the larger group, and that was exciting to hear that people were taking our game and doing different things for it. But then there's also a bunch of pre-gen scenarios for Laser Kittens, so different types of adventures outside of the sort of standard. You're in sort of an ordinary home, learning to be a cat. So we have one about Viking kittens. We have one about kittens on a spaceship. We have one about kittens on a movie set. We have one about kittens on a farm. A bunch of different ideas for. Oh, we have one about kittens that are specifically learning to be familiars for witches.
Oh, that's so fucking awesome.
Yeah. Oh, we have one about bodega cats in New York City. So we have all these kind of pre-gen adventures that give you new ideas about how to play Laser Kittens. And then we also have a bunch of hacks of the system that use the same basic rule set, the same way of playing, but are about things other than kittens. So we have one about foster puppies. We have one about baby dragons. We have one about octopuses that have gotten taken to a wildlife rehab center and are trying to escape back to the ocean. We have one called Trash Friends that's about animals that eat garbage, going around to the different garbage cans in the city and trying to find the best trash. And you're a crew of different sorts of animals. So one person's a raccoon, one person could be an opossum, one person could be an ibis, one person could be a bear, all the different kind of animals that you might find trying to steal your garbage. So we've got a bunch of different things, and we've got a few of those are being written by myself and or Cheyenne, but a bunch of them are being written by guest writers. And we were really excited by the response that we got when we put out our call for guest writers, because we're not like big shots in the gaming world. We're not the kind of people that like everybody is just like so eager to work for. At least we didn't think so. But then we put out this call for writers, and we got a lot of really great people, a lot of people with really cool ideas as well. So like the octopus one that I mentioned, that one's being written by Bree Sheldon.
Oh yeah, we have them on the show before.
Yeah, and when they pitched that to us, I was just like, that is so cool. I never would have thought of that. And so we're definitely having you on to write it. So we got that from a lot of our pitches that we got, and we're really excited about the set of people that we found to write for this.
Yeah, sounds really awesome. And I really want to play the one about being a witch familiar. That sounds so awesome.
Yeah.
So something. So another thing that is a little bit different about this game is that although some violence can be part of the game, is not really the focus. Where in many other games, violent conflicts and that kind of thing are like a much more important factor in the game.
Yeah.
Have you found people having like issues getting used to that, and how does the game help them get into the mindset of other types of conflicts?
So for this game, it's less about like mechanical balance in the sense of like, is your character as powerful as my character, kind of thing that you might have in like a combat heavy, crunchier game. So part of that is that the mechanics really emphasize wackiness and chaos. And that, I think, fits the theme of being little kittens. Your world is kind of chaotic. We find kittens that we're constantly surprised both by what our kittens can't do, things that we would have assumed, a kitten could do that, and they don't manage it, and by what they can do. So a funny story that we had, a litter of kittens, and the room that we had them in, when we would go in there to see them, we would find leaves in the room. And we were like, where are these leaves coming from? And at first we thought maybe we were tracking them in from outside, but then why are they only showing up in the kitten room and not like closer to the door? And then we finally realized that one of the kittens had managed to pry out the bottom corner of the screen on the window, get out onto the roof. There's a section of roof that's just outside that window. Get out onto the roof, and there's some like vines that grow up the side of the house, and so some leaves. And the kittens were going out onto the roof and bringing leaves back into the house for some reason. So it was totally unexpected. So the game mechanics are really designed to create a lot of chaos and zaniness. So right off the bat, you get used to kind of taking all of this and running with it. And you're not worried about like, I missed that roll, and so now we're going to get defeated or something. It's like this thing went wrong, and that's great because it makes the story more fun, because now we got to deal with this wacky thing that's happening. And the other aspect to it is that a lot of the abilities that you have in the game are really left up to your creativity. So we really emphasize that it's not about having a sort of a balance that's pre-concocted by the designers, that they made sure, okay, well, this weapon has only a range of 20 feet to compensate for the fact that you get to roll a d8 when you hit or something like that. So much of the mechanics is about prompts for people's creativity, giving you a chance to come up with your own ideas. So we really emphasize that. So with one of the other mechanics in the game is, instead of having fixed stats, like your strength and your intelligence and those kinds of things, you have a set of classes that you're taking. And so everybody's taking the same set of 5 classes, and you have grades in those classes. And if you do something related to a class you have a good grade in, you can get a bonus. If you do something related to a class that you have a bad grade in, you get a minus. But we really stress that when we say related to the class, that you should be creative about thinking about when is something related to your class. So, for example, in one game, one of the classes the kittens were taking was film studies. And there was somebody that was trying to jump up onto something. And so it was, going to be a challenge. And this person said, well, I should get a bonus here because I've got an A in film studies. And in film studies, we've been watching Kung Fu movies. So that's going to make me, do better at jumping up on this thing. And we're like, yes, that's exactly what we want to hear, because I wouldn't have thought of that. If I was telling you, here's the things you can do better with a film studies A, I wouldn't have thought of that. But that's cool. And that added to the flavor of the game, and this idea that they had been watching Kung Fu movies came back later in the story as a plot point. And the same thing with the lasers. So the power of each laser is described in really general terms. I mentioned the 222 laser, and the description just basically says, yeah, you can double things. Doesn't say what you can double or how you do it or anything. It's just anything that has to do with doubling or twos, or even cutting things in half, all fits under that. So another example that I like to give is that we had a game where there was a human that the kittens didn't like, and he was coming upstairs to stop the kittens from doing whatever it was they were doing. I don't even remember what kind of trouble they were getting into, but this human was coming up the stairs and was going to mess with them. And one of the players had a laser that's called the shoo 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 that makes things go away. And the description, that's basically all it says, is you can make things go away. And so this person said they were going to use their laser, and they said that their idea before they saw what cards they had was that they were going to make this guy like remember that he left the oven on, and so he'd go back downstairs and leave the kittens alone, something like that. But they got one of the highest results that you can get in the game. So you've got 5 cards in your laser, and you've got 2 decks of cards minus the face cards shuffled together. So the maximum you can get is a 39 positive or a 39 negative. And this person had like a 35 or something. And like, whoa, okay, this is huge. I got something huge. And they thought about it for a second, and they're like, all right, so I use my laser, and it doesn't just make this guy go away, it erases him from history so that he never existed in the first place. And that's the kind of thing that if I was like writing out exactly what each laser can do, I wouldn't have come up with that. But so having these really general descriptions, I think, points people in this direction, that it isn't about mechanical balance or anything like that. It's about what can you use your creativity for? What kind of cool ideas can you come up with? Because you as players are going to come up with way cooler ideas than I, as a designer, am ever going to be able to just write into the book. And I should mention as well that I just got a message from Cheyenne. Their phone died and it's having issues, so they might not be able to rejoin us. So we should just continue onward, and if they make it back, if they can get their phone working again, they'll hop back on.
Tell them that there's no problem at all. Like, okay, so yeah. Another aspect of the game that I found interesting is that one of the roles or responsibilities of the class, the GM, the class captain, yeah, is at the end of their scene. They get to decide what if the kitties have mature or act maturely during the scene, and depending on that, they get like they can get better cards for their laser. What do you decide to do that, and how do you see like how does it usually play out for people? Like what kind of things do they find responsible, like mature and?
Yeah, so we came up with that because we felt it really fit the theme of the game, that this is a game about growing up. It's about little kittens who start out not knowing anything, not having any real skills, not knowing how to be a cat, and they're in a school and they're growing up to become cats that can go on and find their forever home and be a loved pet for someone. And so we wanted to really emphasize that question of, are you growing up, are you becoming more mature, or are you being immature, being silly, being just a little kitten. And so we put in that that kind of almost like grading phase at the end of each scene, where the class captain will think about everything that happened in the scene and decide whether to give you a good card to add to your laser or make you take a bad card to add to your laser based on that. And we found it makes for a kind of a cool chance to reflect on the scene. To think about what really happened in that scene and where is this story going, because being a GM-less or rotating GM kind of game, as a player, you're thinking kind of from the point of view of your individual character, but you're also kind of thinking about the story as a whole. You're kind of envisioning where's the story going, what would be cool to have happen in the scene. And I think that that grading phase at the end of each scene helps encourage people to take that perspective, and it also gives you the ability to change what's in your laser, so that the effect of your laser is not just pure randomness, whatever 5 cards you happen to draw. So if you want to be able to do better things with your laser when you go to use it, then you can try to show off your maturity in a scene. If you don't mind your laser doing wacky things that complicate your life, then you can go ahead and be immature in the scene and take some bad cards. And it's always fun to kind of, everybody ends up kind of talking about it. And, there's a lot of like the GM or the class captain will be like, yeah, you decided to try to wake up the dog, and that really didn't work out for us. So you're going to have to take this bad card. And the person's always like, yeah, I know. I've never seen any arguments about whether someone was doing well or doing poorly in their scene.
So the game, my understanding is that is by default is more designed towards one shots. Is that correct? But you also support. Yeah. I know you have some additional rules for a little bit longer games. Can you tell us a little bit how that works?
Yeah. So the game is mostly designed as a one-shot game. It's that's how we've mostly played it with people, is just a single session. Usually runs maybe 3 hours, depending on how into it people get and stuff like that. And that makes a good kind of length for a single adventure. But we do have some suggestions in the original book that you can play it as a campaign with keeping your characters over multiple sessions, and in that case you're designating some bigger picture lessons that you're trying to learn. What is it that your particular kitten really needs to learn in order to become a better cat? And as you learn those lessons, you can improve your grades in your different classes, so that you can do more things better. And you can go ahead and play as many sessions, as many adventures as you like. And then one of the other things that's included in the More Kittens book is we have a few sort of extra little games attached to it. And one of those is one that Cheyenne is taking the lead on, which is Kitten Scouts, which will be about, so once you found your forever home, your adventures as a group of kittens together don't have to end. You can get together at Kitten Scout Camp and try to earn some merit badges and learn more about being a cat. So you could take your same characters. Another thing you could do is you could keep the same NPCs and play a new litter of kittens in the same house, because that's kind of what our experience of fostering kittens is like. We'll get one litter, you'll have them for a few weeks to a month, something like that. Then they'll go back to the shelter to get adopted out. We'll get a new litter of kittens, and they'll explore some of the same issues at our house that the previous litter did. So you could kind of do it that way as well. And I should also mention, since I've brought up these other games, so there's this Kitten Scouts that's kind of like a sequel to More Kittens. There's also another game that we've thrown in that isn't directly related to Laser Kittens, but it is about cats, called Mayor Cat. And so this is a game about trying to get a cat elected mayor. So the premise of the game is that it's based on, you hear those stories sometimes of like, this little town in Alaska elected a cat for mayor because they don't really need someone to actually do their mayor duties, and it was like a tourist attraction and stuff, right? So this is kind of inspired by that. The idea is the incumbent mayor of the town is corrupt and incompetent, and there's only one candidate that can take them down, who is a cat. And so all of you as players have you're all humans who have joined the campaign staff of Mayor Cat. And you play through scenes. This is another GM-less game. because that's just kind of how I design, I guess. You play through scenes where you do various campaign activities. So you might, release an attack ad against the incumbent's campaign, or you might get an influential endorsement from somebody important in the city or something like that. And you play a bunch of scenes, and then you have a debate where you write up questions that the moderator will ask. And you pick players to answer on behalf of the incumbent, so they have to try to answer the question. And then someone to answer on behalf of the cat, who can only answer in meows. And then you figure out who won the debate.
That's just great.
Yeah, so you figure out who won the debate, and then you do some more scenes to wrap up the campaign. And at the end, so throughout the game, one of the main mechanics is, so this is actually a dice-based game, although I'm working on a variant that will also use cards, so that you can play, if you've got these kitten cards from the Kickstarter, you play Mayor Cat with the cards as well. But throughout the game, when you try to get the cat to do stuff, you have to roll some dice, and the cat will either go up or down in the polls, depending on what you get. And so there's actually a little tracker for your current standing in the polls. And so then at the end of the game, you roll some dice depending on where you are in the polls to see if the cat actually won the election.
Great. That's just super cool. And that's part of the More Kittens the what is going to go in. Yeah, I've also seen there's a few stretch goals. I don't know if you mentioned any of them or.
Yeah, I've probably mentioned some of them because I sometimes forget which things we put as part of the core book and which we put as our stretch goals, because they're all so great. So we've got stretch goals. Every $500 we go past our main funding goal, we'll add another either pre-gen scenario or hack to the game. So the farther we go, the more different things we get to add to the More Kittens book. And I should mention as well that all the backer level, you could get just the cards. If you're like, I don't care about the Laser Kittens game, but these cards look really cool, you could back to get just the cards. But any level that you back that gets the More Kittens book, whether as PDF or as a physical book, you will also get a PDF of the original core Laser Kittens game, because like the scenarios, you kind of need the core game to be able to play them. And I want to make sure that nobody backs the Kickstarter and gets the supplement book and is like, wait a minute, I can't do anything with this, and now you have to go buy this other game to go along with it. So make sure you always get that PDF with it, just in case. But then you can also back to get the physical book of Laser Kittens as well. And the highest backer level we have, which still has some slots open, is that you can get your cat featured in the book. So our artist for the book, Cynthia Lee, who did the art for the original Laser Kittens book as well, will draw your cat as a professor in the book. So if you would like to get your cat immortalized in a role-playing game, you can back at that higher level. It's a little more expensive, but you get that cool bonus of having your cat actually in the book.
Cool. So yeah, I only have a couple more questions, so if anyone in the chat wants to ask anything, but the first one is this is something I like to ask kind of everyone to learn a little bit more. What some challenge or problem or difficulty that you found during the development of the game? How did you approach it and solve it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think what our biggest challenge in the actual game development was. I think it was giving enough structure for people to get into the GM-less kind of play, because we had a lot of our playtesters were coming from a little more traditional background, playing games, with GMs, games that had, where the adventure would be kind of planned out to a greater degree by the GM, and then they're coming into this game where it's really open and freeform, and we want you to use your creativity, but it can't just be like totally wide open, like just do whatever you want, because that doesn't give people the structure to help them. And I think that the best games, in my opinion, the games that I like the most, are the ones that are really built around giving you prompts to bring out your creativity, giving you suggestions or ideas that you can be like, oh yeah, that gives me some ideas of how to build on that. So not just being totally wide open, do whatever you want, because I can do whatever I want without needing a game to help me, and not locking it down to you can only do these particular things, but they give you prompts and suggestions that help you exercise your own creativity. And so trying to find the right way to do that for Laser Kittens was, I think, probably our biggest challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. It can be difficult to kind of foster, like let players go wild, and at the same time like foster like creativity and give them a structure. Another thing I always like to ask, although you've been doing a great job of this yourself the whole time, is if you could tell us a cool story, some memory from playing a game, something sure, just to give us an idea of how the game plays out.
Oh yeah, let me see, because I've given a bunch of some of our favorite stories already.
Maybe one from playing some of the stuff that is coming in the More Kittens supplement. If you have any of those.
Oh yeah. So I played recently, and this video is actually online, because I played this with the Gauntlet community, which is a great group of people that play a lot of really great games online. That's part of what got me thinking that I really need to include the online rules for Laser Kittens in the book, because it's been great being able to play online. So we played a game of Mayor Cat a little bit while back, and what ended up happening, one of the things that the mayor had done that was why we needed to defeat him, get him out of office, was that he had introduced dolphins into the harbor of the city as a tourist attraction, but because the harbor was so polluted, the dolphins had mutated and grown legs and were walking around the city. And so it ended up being one of the big debate issues, was whether we should allow the dolphins to get driver's licenses as well. The incumbent mayor and the cat had to debate the merits of giving driver's licenses to mutated dolphins.
That's great. Yeah, that I really want to play that game as well. I really will have to play it one of these days.
Another good story from a recent one. This is also another one that people could go listen to themselves. This is on the Party of One podcast. I played a 2-player game of Laser Kittens with Jeff Stormer, and we were the whole game was about, there was this bison meat in the freezer that we had found out that our human had gotten, and we were like, oh, that's going to be so good if we can steal that and eat that. And so we spent our whole time getting down to the freezer to get this, and we realized after we had gotten it and opened the package and kind of ruined it, that our human, who's named Maisha, was actually using that to make dinner for a date that she had who was coming over, and we were like, oh shoot, we just messed it up for our human. And so then the last few scenes, we were trying to find a vegetarian recipe to suggest to her that she could make for her date, so that we didn't wreck her date with our impulsive kitten desire to eat the people food.
Amazing. So yeah, I hope that all of this will give the spectators an idea of how what's the game about, how it plays out, if and if you are interested in the game and the expansion, you can go back the Kickstarter, support the Kickstarter, you can get the expansion, you can get the cards, you can get the PDF for the original game, so you can play and be kitties and do all the things kitties do, which are always cute somehow. And yeah, I'm going to send the link again. I'm going to try. And yeah, I think thanks so much for being here today, and thank Cheyenne on my part as well. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to come back, but it was really great to talk with him as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on. It was great. We always love talking about kittens.
I mean,
anybody that wants to hear.
Who doesn't?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, to our spectators as well, if you like this content, if you want to support this content and see more of it, you can of course subscribe to us here on Twitch, on YouTube, follow us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and also MeWe for some reason, but I kind of feel bad about it, but you can follow me there as well. And if you really want to help us, you can subscribe to our Twitch to support us every month, or make a donation through our Ko-fi, which we will be able to find underneath the video somewhere. There's like a button there somewhere. And yeah, so yeah, thanks a lot everyone for being here today. I hope to see you soon. And as I always say, live long and prosper. May the force be with you. I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.